Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to Brains and Baubles Live. I'm your host, Davina Dandridge, and I'm here yet again to share the benefits and beauty of emotional intelligence, in particular, the bling concept that I've created to make it simple for everyone to understand. So every week we meet here on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern to talk about emotional intelligence with people who really know what they're doing, people who use emotional intelligence in their lives, people who have overcome obstacles that if they had not been emotionally healthy would have taken them down. So I'm here to share, and I hope you're here to learn and just have some fun. I'm loosening up. You loose? How you get loose? However you get loose, I'm glad you're here because my guest is dynamic. And just like all of our other guests, she has something special, something to benefit the people, right? Her name is Nneka Owens, and she is a licensed therapist, and she specializes in family and relationships. And she's going to talk about relationships right now and try to get us together on how we should be thinking, how we should be using terms, and what we should be doing to remain emotionally healthy within relationships. So without further ado, I am bringing her in. Come on in, Nneka Owens.
Uh-oh.
I hear you.
Okay, just put my camera. Why is it not coming out? There
There
we
you
go.
are. I
Hi.
see that. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I am so glad that you're here today. I gave a brief overview of who you are, but I didn't share how we know each other. We met each other way, way, way back, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm. Yes, we
and
did.
and we spent a lot of time together in a family environment, you know, just in at church, learning the groundwork for what we're doing now, I would say, because
Yeah.
without that foundation, um, then it's hard to really be balanced and see how clinical terms and
Hmm.
trends in society impact how we think and how we behave. But in the core, we really have to know who we are. But beyond that, you are a great family friend. You're a great supporter. Listen, Nneka was the very first person to purchase the Brains and Baubles book. And I'm so thankful and grateful for your support, Nneka.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, yes, yes. So today, Nneka, I really just want to talk to you about the projects that you're doing. You're a filmmaker. You also host these wonderful relationship groups, and you have your own practice where you help people in many, many ways in family and relationships. So thank you again for bringing your expertise to the table, right? So we can help get people emotionally healthy. But where I really want to start is in the relationship arena, because I talk to people all the time who are struggling to find mates that they feel are qualified in many ways, especially their emotional health. And a lot of it has to do with their past hurts. And I know that you have a particular way that you address that called the 90s. Could you
Mhm.
explain that concept?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. I really am honored to be here.
Good, good, good.
Um, what I often tell people in my counseling sessions, 90% of what we go through in life is about our past, and only 10% is about the present. So a
Mhm.
couple can come in and say, oh, we got infidelity issues, and they want to make that the problem when in fact that's symptomatic of something bigger. So the
Mhm.
90% is to something bigger. And what often happens, couples come in with baggage,
Yeah.
unresolved issues, unresolved trauma, and they bring it to the relationship and it spills over. And so that spillover is to 90%. Yeah, the 10% is about more about the here and now, but that
Right.
90% is about the past.
And I like that because you talked about behavior, and I always tie behavior to several things. First of all, it's your emotional state, because the way that you think is definitely impacted by your emotions. So if you are going through something at this time, you might not be thinking logically. You might be
Right.
looking internally because you're going through it and you have hurt. But the point is that your emotions trigger a certain type of thought, and thought leads to behavior. So if the
Right.
infidelity is the behavior, then yes, that makes sense that the past has issues that haven't been addressed that impact the emotions. So that thinking to say that it's okay for me to go outside of my marriage
Hmm.
um, is exhibiting, making that behavior come out.
That's
So I
right.
think that's really a great connection there. What do you say to people in relationships where they, and I think a lot of times there are three things that impact the relationship. First of all, is expectations,
Yeah.
lack of communication, and just the idea that we're so quick to not put ourselves in the other person's shoes and try to be softer sometimes or not speak sometimes. What do you say when people place labels on what's going on in the relationship, where, and I know that this is a true thing, so I'm not discounting narcissism, which is a term that I've heard, and we to be honest, we've talked about this
Yes.
beforehand.
Mhm.
um, how should people address the issues they're having in communication in relationships without using clinical terms that I don't know that people really use in their true context? And I'm not saying that's for everyone, but I just hear when I consider myself to be well read, and
Mhm.
some of these terms have escaped me, and maybe might just be because that's not my focus. But at the same time, I know that everyone isn't a counselor or everyone hasn't done the work. So, how do people in those situations, how should they address what's going on as far as their mate is concerned?
Yeah, you definitely should suspend, labeling someone because it just fuels the fire.
Mm-hmm.
I think so often, you get upset, you're emotional, you start, calling names,
Mm-hmm.
saying things that, hit hard and hurt. So
Yeah.
I think it's important that, couples understand that people are bringing on baggage
Yeah.
and and instead of calling names, in judging someone, really try to understand why, like why
Yeah.
the behavior. And a lot of times we don't want to understand the why behind behavior, and there's always
No.
a why behind the behavior. So I
Mm-hmm.
really believe that you should really suspend, calling people names, because to call someone like a narcissist, or I mean, just the number of things that people say, oh, you're bipolar. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, wow, that's such a harsh thing to say to someone without the facts, state the
Right.
facts, because,
Right.
a lot of times when we are, judging things, it fuels unwanted emotions. So state the facts. And so I often tell people, suspend judgment, because that's a judgment. You don't have facts that this person is
And
bipolar.
labels hurt. Labels
Yes.
hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
you go from one relationship to the next thinking that you are or exhibit these traits that someone has labeled you in the
Yeah.
previous relationship, um, and without being or having a center or idea of who you are self, which would require, as you say, addressing the things
Mm-hmm.
from the past. If that hasn't been addressed, then you're going to carry that
Mm-hmm.
label on to the next relationship, which is why it seems like sometimes people just go from one bad relationship to the other.
Yeah.
And, I just really wanted to address that really quickly, because that may be where someone is right now, but that's not where someone has to stay.
Right.
So when couples come to you in counseling, when it is that type of thing where one person has been labeled something, or they have this idea of who they aren't seen, in other words, what is something that you suggest that they do to begin to break through what's happening with them?
I think self-awareness is key.
Mm,
I like it when it's more prevention. I love when couples come to me before they get married
okay.
because the
Yeah.
premarital counseling. So, not everybody does that. But so once you're in, it's important to, one, I think when you're in a relationship, the beauty of a relationship is like my husband can see me more than I see myself, and I see
Uh-huh.
him more than he sees himself.
Right.
So if I see something and if I approach it in a loving way, I remember when we first got married, he told me, he says, Nneka, you can be so unforgiving sometimes. I'll apologize for something and you can be so unforgiving. So I could have been very dismissive of that and said, you don't know what
Right.
you're talking about. But he said it in a way that was loving and kind. So I had to kind of take a look at it. I'm like, where did I learn that? And I remember growing up in a household, sometimes me and my sister, we would, we love each other to pieces now, but
Right.
we would hold a mean grudge. And my mother would too. If someone wronged her, we would hold a mean grudge. And, forgiveness wasn't always, if you weren't in our immediate circle,
Hmm.
forgiveness came. It wasn't easy to come by.
Well, Nneka, you just dropped some serious gems right there because the benefit of emotional intelligence, and I always say this, and sometimes I'm like, am I saying self-awareness too much? But that's where we have to start, right?
Yeah.
We have
Yes.
to start with self because that's the only thing we can really control. So
Yes.
you said self-aware to know that, okay, I can trust what my mate is saying because this is the person that's seen me in many different situations and circumstances. So I can trust, number one, that they have my best interest. So when my husband comes to me and say, oh, well, you're a little wired up right now, that means that I should take that advice and really look into self and see what's triggering me to be wired up and address that. And I can only do that if I have self awareness and I don't take that as an offense because, or personally, well, it can't help but be personal, but I don't take it to heart
Yes.
because I understand that, I can change these things and I don't have to operate on my default emotions or my default reaction to someone giving me constructive criticism or bringing something to me in a loving way.
Yeah,
It's
right.
about how you say it, right?
Oh my gosh, it is because your partner should be able to influence you. And again, that's the beauty of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
They should be able to influence you. I should be
Mm-hmm.
able to, or your just in any relationship, anybody that you have in your immediate circle, they should be able to influence, something because they're experiencing you,
Right,
right?
right.
So I would think
Feedback.
that. Mm-hmm.
Feedback is good. I talk about, with my dad, and I share things that my dad taught me, and I actually call it that, things my dad taught me, because I know that there are so many women who didn't have a father or father figure in their lives, and there is something that you get from having a male figure in your life. And one thing that my dad would often do, it would be to kind of check me or reel me in, but in a loving way. And he would say, he called me Vivi. He said, Vivi, I think we need to have a love talk. And so
Wow.
we would go out, we'd go for a walk, we might go to coffee to the Coney Island, and he would just say, what's going on with you? I'm seeing this in your personality, really constructive. So where
Yeah.
now I can accept feedback from my
Yes.
mate and not feel a judgment in a certain way. And for a lot of people, it takes time to get there. But studying emotional intelligence is definitely a way to get to that point. What else do you say someone could do to amplify self awareness?
Well, I think we try to suspend being defensive because that'll
Mm-hmm.
destroy a relationship. Because if you're on the defense, nothing can penetrate, nothing can get to you. So you got to create an environment where your spouse can come to you and say, "Hey, this is how I'm experiencing you." Granted that, like you said earlier, Davina, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So
Mm-hmm.
you want the landing to be soft so the person can receive it. So I would say just creating an environment and being aware of what are the things that you are prone to. Like I
Yeah,
know at the beginning I could be a defensive person.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so again, like go back to that awareness. If you know that, you got to check yourself and say, you got to check yourself, especially when you know something's coming.
Yeah.
I often tell people, if there's something very important that you want to talk to your mate about, schedule some time. Don't
Yeah.
just off the fly, just, hey,
Mm-hmm. Because it
just,
comes out wrong. It can come out strong and wrong. You
yes.
know, it could have the wrong momentum behind it, and then the
Yeah.
person's automatically turned off. I always like to say I sandwich it, and I guess this comes from my professor side. I never want to discourage a student, but if they're doing bad, I have to let them know. So I'll tell them what they're doing well or
Yes.
what they did good at. Then I will tell them, what it is that is really concerning, and then
Mhm.
I'll button it up with another piece of information to encourage them and let them know that I'm supporting it. And I think that that model can be in relationships too. It should be in relationships too,
Yeah.
especially intimate relationships, because you can't get any deeper than that. I can't go to my girlfriends with some of the things that I can go to my husband. I wouldn't accept feedback, some of the same
Yeah.
feedback from a girlfriend that I would my husband, because we're not in that intimate space.
Right.
Now, Nneka, we talked about this, and I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to talk about this. I always talk about, and I've said this on other chats and even in some of my lectures, that women who are looking for a mate are the
Mhm.
most attractive when they are focused on themselves, meaning that they are doing things to better themselves. They are not concerned about going to try to meet someone and catch someone, but they're going to the museum if that's what they love to do.
Right.
They are in these business meetings or hobby groups that really make them feel joy and happiness. And that's when they exude their most beautiful self.
I agree.
And you are proof that my theory works, because this happened to you long before I came up with the theory. So I'm not taking credit for Nneka's relationship, but tell the story of how you met Fred. And I just think when I heard it years ago the first time, I was so happy. And how long have you and Fred been married?
It'll be 20 years next year. Yeah, but we've been
Okay.
together like 22 years, 22 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, so
Wow.
I'm really excited. And it's funny because I think I said this to you. I grew up thinking divorce was hereditary because people
Mm,
around me got divorced so much. So when I met Fred, what happened was we're going to a church where a lot of singles would hang out together. And this one particular time I was going to go, we were all planned to go. We always did group dating. We all went out together. We had
okay.
planned to go to this fundraiser. I had like 5 or 6 people going with me, and they all canceled. All of them.
Everyone.
Everyone canceled. Mind you, we all went out together. And for a
Yeah.
minute there, I wasn't going to go because I didn't want to be by myself. But I
Okay.
said, you know what? I'm going to go by myself. And
Gay
so I went by
solo
myself.
works.
Being solo works. I went by
Mhm.
myself because, again, not used to going by myself places, but I decided, you know what? I'm going by myself. Went by myself, was sitting at a table by myself,
Okay.
and my now husband walks in. He wasn't my husband at the time, of course. So
You're
he walked,
strangers. You're total strangers,
just
right?
total strangers, total strangers.
Okay.
He was already sitting at a table with 2 other people. He had some
Okay.
people with him at this fundraiser. So he saw me sitting alone, and he's just a very polite, kind person. He wasn't hitting on me or anything like that.
Okay.
He said, "Hey, would you like to sit with us?" I'm like, "Yeah." Now, had I been with my posse of friends,
He wouldn't have approached you.
he would not have approached me. So after that, it was almost like we were on a train ride all by ourselves and nobody
Ooh.
else was around us. And it was just, and when I left, I was so afraid, Davina, because again, I knew Fred was my husband right
Yeah.
away.
You got that peace about you, that centeredness that that is so, um, it does give you butterflies.
Ooh,
It
girl, it
does.
was more
I've
than
had
butterflies. But I
butterflies. My
tell you, it
husband
was,
gave me butterflies. And when you get the butterflies, it comes out of nowhere and you're just like, what do I do?
oh yeah, I ran a few times though. I was scared a few times because it
Wow.
wasn't, he was he was doing everything right, and I didn't trust myself to
Mm-hmm.
be who he needed me to be, because again, like I said earlier, divorce was all around me, and I just thought divorce was hereditary, and I was afraid that, oh wow, this is just going to end in divorce.
But
You know,
you took the leap though.
yes, I
You
did.
did do it. You didn't I mean, I think self-sabotage, I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people do in relationships because they haven't sought the answer to some of the 90. And
Yeah.
uh
Mhm.
and that's what happens, that they keep. But you, even being a professional, you still had to work on some aspects of yourself to
Oh, yes.
be open and in line. And the way that I thought about it, like when my husband and I have known each other since we were 12, but
Mm.
always as friends. Like, I was the girl who had a lot of guy platonic friends. I've
Uh-huh.
learned now that they may be platonic or may be waiting. Who knows? But
Right.
anyway, but I considered Chris to be a lifelong friend, and he had followed my life. I knew, he knew when I got married the first time. I knew when he got married and had kids. We had seen each other in marriage, and when we did connect and started dating, it just felt like I hadn't felt before. Like, I had been in love before, but this was different. The phone calls, the attention, and then one day I got a text at work, and something just hit me. I got the butterflies. I don't remember what the text said. I should have saved it. But
Wow.
I had to
Yes.
stop what I was doing, and I went over to my manager friend, and
Mm.
I said, "Is this real?" I showed it to her. I'm like, I don't know how to feel right now. And she
Wow.
said, "I'm going to give you some advice." She said, "Roll with it until it changes.
Mm.
You could be in the best relationship. Just let it happen. Don't preconceive all of the ball dropping and the bad things." And I think that's what happens. Not that I had been through divorce, so of course there was hurt there, but I hadn't really been in terrible relationships before.
Mhm.
So I wasn't looking at that, but it was just that I hadn't experienced it. And this type of attention or type of love that I was getting. And
Yeah.
I had to tell myself, with the help of a friend, to be open, to
Yeah.
be open.
It's not easy. Yeah. It's not easy
Hmm.
when even when you get what you pray for and then some, you get
Yeah.
more. And so it's
Yeah.
definitely a blessing.
Now, Nneka,
Hmm.
you're an expert in relationships. So we talked about helping a relationship to stay together and not letting it end and try to work through some things. And we just talked about how to even be open to begin relationships, and that part of the relationship where it is scary that most people don't get past. You have a way that you are going to share more of your information, and you're going to revisit this process. Would you explain, first of all, what used to be called the Truth Party and what you're looking to do in the near future?
Yeah. Well, the Truth Party started, and thanks for asking that question. The
Mm-hmm.
Truth Party started in 2009, and it was just my way of bringing single men and women together, especially women and men of color, African
Mm-hmm.
American men and women of color, because I
Mm-hmm.
felt like so often we don't go the distance in our relationships is because we
Yeah.
haven't been taught.
Yes.
So I wanted to bring men and women together in a way that wasn't judgmental and just really
Okay.
explore their truth. Why aren't they making it to the finish line? So it was no judgment. It was no bad female or male bashing. It was
Yeah.
just a group of men and women coming together. I would present a topic and we would talk about it and just
Mm-hmm.
explore it. But it was a way to encourage them to look deeper within, because so often what we do, we point the finger of it at everybody. And it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
why don't we look at ourselves? Because you can't change what you don't acknowledge.
That's
So you
right.
got to be able to tap into your ineffective behaviors and say, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I need to change that. So many
Yeah.
people have said this about me.
Yeah.
Maybe I really need to look deeper into that. So that was the Truth Party. That's what it was about. It was about bringing men and women together who wanted to be in relationships and really digging down deep to look at self.
Okay. Yes. Yes. And I think the part that we were face to face, and it wasn't
Yes.
you could really express yourself and hear the other person. I think what happens so much now is that social media is great used in the right context, but I
Mm-hmm.
think right now people are so quick to just voice their opinion without being critical thinkers and looking for more information or hearing the other person out. They come
Right.
with their own ideas, preconceived ideas, and not open to discussion. That dialogue is what's so important, because you could peel back so many layers of pride that people share, to really get down and to find out what people are, what's triggering some of the behavior that we see in relationships.
Yeah, good
So
word. Yeah.
what are you going to do moving forward, with the truth party concept? And if someone wanted to, you know, use your services, or hear more about even the film that you're making on
Mhm.
mother daughter, that you've made on mother daughter relationships, how they could view that, where, what are you going to do with the truth party, and then how can they contact you?
Yeah. Well, the truth parties, I definitely want to, bring them back in some form or fashion. It's just funding. I find that a lot of these things I was self-funding. Was
Yeah,
never,
and they
it
were
was just like,
beautiful. I must say,
thank
because
you
I
so
did
much.
attend. I did it. I think I did one or two, and they were
Mhm.
very organized. You were very respectful of time, and you just kept the flow
Yeah.
going, and it was light and it was good. So yes, yes, I could see where cost
Yeah, and so that's
is
what I'm
a.
working on now, just trying to get
Mhm.
grants for these things, all the
Okay,
projects, for the most part, they've all been self-funded. And
okay,
it is time to really keep them going, but I need to generate money in order to do that. So I was looking at, doing something online, having a truth party online. I'm a visual person, so I like to give, skits and scenarios for people to look at and
oh,
dissect. I actually did that last year. We did something via Zoom where we
okay.
had produced and directed a skit. And
That sounds
I
interesting.
need to put it on YouTube, but it was just really trying to get people to look at the
Yes, you should.
concept. Yeah, so that's where I'm at now with it. But right now we're just working on grants. And with the documentary, we've completed that project. And now
Okay,
we're just looking for more opportunities so that people can view it. When you want to view it's a feature film, so it's like an hour, well, 2 hours,
okay,
and it costs to, rent out these cinemas and
yeah.
venues. And so again, another we need funding for those types of things.
Now, listen, give a brief synopsis of what the film is about. And also, if someone
Okay.
wanted to help you with funding, how can they contact you?
Yeah. The Beauty from Ashes, the journey of three daughters. Back in 2017, I was coming across so many women of all races that had
Hmm.
problematic mother-daughter relationships. But it was the African American community that I wanted to focus on the most because I wanted to
Okay.
understand what was behind the disconnect in these relationships. Not to demonize mothers, Black mothers, but
Right.
wanting to understand because mothers were once daughters themselves, and sometimes it's a multi-generational thing that's being passed
Absolutely.
down. So I wanted to see how slavery impacted those relationships, epigenetics, and undiagnosed and untreated mental illness was impacting those relationships. So we had three
Oh,
women who
yes.
volunteered to share their stories. They weren't sisters, but they had problematic mother-daughter relationships. And I was so ignorant to this reality because I have a good relationship with my mom.
Yeah.
I thought all mothers love their daughters. And I felt real bad because in grad school, we didn't talk about that. We didn't
Uh-huh.
touch. Moms have like a halo effect. And again, don't want to demonize moms, but we need to address the issue. And I remember addressing this issue. People like, "Are you sure you're brave? You want to do that? Thank you so much for doing this." Because it's a topic that we often don't want to talk about because moms have a tendency to have like this halo effect, like they're automatically
Oh, yeah.
nurtured caregivers.
Yeah. And then sometimes talking about these things, you know, there is a struggle in the African American community because most moms, a lot of moms are single moms. I've been a single mom for a time. So I mean there is a certain armor that you have to put on in order to maintain, take care of children, work, and even have some semblance of a personal life.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to balance. But if we think about generationally, there were other obstacles that in past generations impacted the relationship between mother and daughter. Even some of the systematic things that happen in our
Mhm.
society impacted how the behavior in the household was.
Oh
You have to
yeah.
be a certain way. You have to work this hard, or you have to date this type of person, depending on the
Mhm.
lifestyle. um, it is something that needs to be talked about,
Yeah.
but not so much in a way that we see on television, but more like you're doing, a real honest,
Yeah.
truthful,
Thank you.
upfront way. So I really appreciate your efforts in relationships and in the mother. I have a daughter, and I love and give as much as I can to my daughter in every single way. I was blessed to have a wonderful mother, and she imparted a lot of great wisdom in me. So I'm willing to share here, and I thank you for opening up the dialogue to talk about it. Where can someone contact you, Nneka?
Well, they can go, there's two ways. They can go to my website, owensTherapy.com. Again, that's
Okay.
owensTherapy.com. So there's a lot of information on it about my practice, my mental health practice, and the documentary. So if they want to go there, I would say that's the main space because it's a branch to all the other things that I'm doing.
All right. Well, Nneka, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me and taking time out of your busy schedule because you are busy. She's booked and busy, y'all. So if you want to get in contact with Nneka, go to her website, reach out to her, and I'm sure you'll get a wealth of information. And if you want more information, and I'm sure you do, about emotional intelligence, my bling concept, how you can apply it to your life, listen, just be here next week at the same time, 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook Live, and LinkedIn. Until next time, see ya. Bye, Nneka.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right, thank you.